So welcome to our first webinar on finding your way as an occasional teacher. We're really excited to be together and here with you. As we look ahead, I just want to make everybody aware that we will be recording this webinar and it will be shared out with those folks who can't join us tonight live. If you've never used Zoom before, on the screen is a little toolbar to show you how to use Zoom. And you can hover over your toolbar. You'll see all the way to the left is mute for your mic. And, please mute your mic throughout the time. And you can choose whether or not to keep your video on. But if you keep your mic muted, we'll have times where we'll ask you to unmute and share with us and share with each other. So also in the chat, we'll use chat at different times. We'll ask that you respond to us and also respond to any of your participant friends who join us. So you can either private message or chat to everyone. And you can do that by pulling down the who can see your messages. It'll say to, and it can go everyone, or if you click down, you can private message different people. So reactions, feel free to use them at any time as well. And it just helps kind of give us a feel for how you're feeling. With that, I'm Beth Rail. I'm one of the two facilitators tonight. I'm from Michigan, so welcome. I'm so excited to be working with educators from Canada. A little bit about me. I'm the Chief Academic Officer for the 5th largest school district in Michigan. We have about 17,000 students in my district. I've been in education for nearly 30 years and having a lot of fun and just excited to be here tonight. And I'm going to hand it over to Brenda, who's going to introduce herself to you.
There we go. Hello, everybody. My name is Brenda Sherry, and I'm coming in from Guelph, Ontario tonight. And I'm working with Advanced Learning Partnerships after about 32 years in public schools. So I've had a lot of roles there: classroom teacher, occasional teacher, classroom teacher, tech coach, and vice principal. So I'm really happy to be here and hoping we can have a nice informal chat with lots of questions around what it is you need to know. So thanks, Beth. What I'd like to do to start off is to, as we gather, take a moment to acknowledge where you're coming in from. And if you could add that to the chat and let us know where you are. I'm coming in from Guelph, which is situated on treaty land that is home to many First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people today. And we know that that history does not start at the point of European contact. It begins long before and includes the Anishinaabe, the Huron-Wendat, the Haudenosaunee, and the Métis peoples, and continues to the present day. So as community members all across Ontario and Turtle Island, we include Beth in the United States, and when we acknowledge our traditional territories, we have a responsibility for the stewardship of the land on which we learn and work, as well as to acknowledge the harms of the past and take action to help with healing in our future. So I'd like to honor the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation of the Anishinaabe peoples, from which this land was purchased by the British in 1784 as Upper Canada Treaty Number 3 in 1792. Treaty time was 1792. And having said that, you'll notice on the slide here an icon for an app or a website that you can use called Whose Land. So I just put the link in the chat and you can explore that other times, but I use that quite a bit when I'm exploring traditional territories all across Turtle Island. So you might find as you travel that it's something that you might want to do or use as a primary resource with students in your schools. There's videos and there's interactive maps and all kinds of things to look for. So there's a first resource. And our workshop series comes to us from OECM in partnerships with Dell Technologies and Advanced Learning Partnership. And OECM is a not-for-profit collaborative sourcing Ontario's education sector. So, and for nonprofits. So they actually do a lot of the purchasing, recommending, generating services, and really save a lot of our districts because we have 72 districts here, Beth, in Ontario. So that's a lot, and they are part of that piece. So they're really happy to be offering a lot of webinars for our educators for free. So that's really nice. And Advanced Learning Partnerships is a consulting organization really founded on the fact that, we're better together. And that's what I really love about joining that team. I know Beth has been involved as well for quite a while. So I'm really happy to be learning along with everyone here. And welcome, Kakeshan. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, welcome. Yeah. Tonight, as we Thanks, welcome. Tonight, as we engage in our first series, first of the 2 sessions of the series together, and if you can make it, those of you who are live, this will also be recorded and shared with you later. We know other people will join us via the recording, and then we'll have a second webinar as well. And at the end of tonight's webinar, we're also going to ask for some input from you on what you'd like to learn about in our next webinar. But tonight, we're going to kind of talk about these things. We're going to talk about things you might expect as an occasional teacher, how to create a successful experience. We're going to talk a little bit about various age groups and some of the unique structures of each age group, talk about relationships and networking, and then look at some strategies for success, daily routines, classroom management, and provide several resources for support as we work together. Throughout tonight, though, the most important thing is making sure your needs are met. So as we engage, we've got some talking points we want to share with you, but it really needs to be a dialogue together so that we make sure that you have everything you need to be successful. Quick thank you to our sponsor, Intel, and for all of the support and helping us as we do this work together. So Brenda's going to do a little bit of ice breaking for us, getting us to know each other a bit.
All right, yes, let's do it. So I'm going to put in the chat a link to something that you'll see a lot in your schools if you have not already seen it. And Beth is actually opening it up, thank you, on a tab in her browser. And we should be able to see shortly as you come in as well, that we get everybody in there. And speak up if it's not working for you, because we want to make sure we get everybody in there. And you can give me a thumbs up too, because I see some anonymous people, but that could be just Beth and I right now. So let's see, can you open that up? Feel free to just unmic and say yeah too as well. It's all good. All right, we have 3.
Yes, I'm in it.
You're in, Jordan. Okay. Kakeshan, are you in? All right, well, I'm gonna, yes? All right, good. Okay, so what you might see something like a Jamboard. It's like a notice board. It's like a sticky notes app. Lots of people use different ones, but if any of the schools that you're in are using the Google platform, this is something that's usually built in. And so one of the things you also might see on your plans when you're in schools is check-ins with students, right? And we thought we would like to check in with you and see how you're feeling tonight. And what you will do is down the left-hand side of the screen, when you hover your mouse there, you'll see you have a pen tool, you have an eraser, you have a selection tool, notes, and you can add pictures and shapes and text. So we thought maybe we could just use the sticky note tool today and pop it open and let us know your name and maybe how long you've been an occasional teacher, and if you're brand new, because we know we have some people here who are brand new. So let's just get our names on there in any color you like. So you can choose your colors across the top and put your name in there. And I know I was an occasional teacher for about 3 years, so I'm going to say that. Now they end up on top of each other, so I'm just going to pull mine over, or someone did for me, thank you. And then please place your sticky note where you're feeling. We want to check in and see how everybody's doing today at the beginning of our learning. I am thinking I'm going to be right here. All right. All right. So Jordan, how are you feeling?
Well, I'm like a little nervous to be a new occasional teacher, but then I'm also like excited for it. So I kind of put myself in the middle there.
Absolutely good. And I was happily doing occasional teaching. I did the kind of subbing where you were around going to different schools every day. And then I did a couple of really valuable long-term occasionals before I got my contract. So I really enjoyed learning that way. Kakeshan, how about you? You've been at it for 2 years. So where would you place yourself around your thinking around occasional teaching?
I'm happy as far as till now as occasional teacher.
All right, very good. And Beth, you were at it for 3 years, about the same as me.
Yep, I did some, so in the States, in the US, we call it substitute teaching. So I actually acted as a substitute in a long-term substitute in a program that worked with at-risk students, students who had some additional needs and stuff. And I loved it, and then moved into a full-time teaching job and have loved my entire educational experience since then. And I just can't thank you all enough for being occasional teachers, because it's so critically important. And we'll talk about that as we move through our webinar today, but just excited to be with you and help support you.
All right. So with a smaller group here, Beth, should we play our game? Just do it a little bit. Yeah, okay. So if we go to the next slide, so there's an arrow over at the top of your Jamboard, and I think you can copy and paste your sticky over, or just grab a different one with your name on it, and we'll do that. I'm going to just do it again here, have my name on it. Again, it sort of pops out on top of people. And this is actually what I really love about this activity is if you're ever in, let's line up on the middle here. If you're ever in need of something that's pretty quick to set up and really encourages people to talk and get to know each other, Would You Rather is kind of a fun game to play. And now we're going to play it virtually, but if you were in a classroom and you had students, you could have students lining up in the middle of a space, and you could have them going to one side or the other and actually getting some moving around happening, which is always wonderful when you need that quick kind of energizer. So I'm going to ask you a few things, and you're going to, if the first thing I say, we'll move to the left side of the screen, okay? And the second thing I say, we'll move to the right. And let's see what kind of interests we have in our space here today. So, okay, here's a good one. Just because I've been so cold today, so I kind of wish for air conditioning. So, would you rather give up air conditioning and heating for the rest of your life, or give up the internet for the rest of your life? So, left side for you're okay to give up heating or air conditioning, and right side if you would want to give up the internet. Oh, I'm gonna go there. All right, Beth, why did you place yourself over there? I love it. I love it.
Because I'm at that
my-
point in my career where I actually would probably welcome at times giving up the internet and having a little peace and quiet. So
Yeah.
and I don't like being cold, and heat. I could probably give up, air conditioning, but heat's important.
Yeah. I thought, okay, I'm a knitter, so I knit, so I could actually maybe keep myself warm other ways, and maybe the camping that Jordan and I do. But I learned so much on the internet, and it really is a daily, although I like to reduce my screen time sometimes, that's why I said it. What about anybody else? Anybody want to comment on why they are on that side?
I'm cold all
I
the
can
time.
go. I want to say just that since nowadays it's just technology is taking over everywhere. So even if we want to get rid of ourselves, we won't be able to do that. So that's why I want to save myself from little bit from screen timing, but still I know I get lots of information from social media and everything. I learned from there, so that's why I just chose.
Mhm. Jordan, any comment on your choice?
I'm cold all the time and it doesn't make me happy. So I feel like I'd rather give up the internet.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. Did I put it on the wrong side? I might
Yeah,
have.
you're with Beth then. You're over with Beth.
Yeah, I'm over there. Oops. There we go.
That's okay. No worries.
No, Brenda and Kakeshan, you're making me feel like, I could probably use the internet to figure out how to keep myself warm.
Yeah. Okay, here, let's do one more and then they'll stop because you get the idea and you can actually look up a lot of these online. So it's a good toolkit item to have for an occasional teacher. Okay. This is going to be a little bit of a hard one, I think. Would you rather have, oh no, I'll do an easier one. Excuse me. Would you rather be always 10 minutes late or 20 minutes early? So 10 minutes late on the left or 20 minutes early on the right. I know where I'm going on this one. Oh, it helps. It helps if I use my screen that actually moves the sticky note. I was trying to do it on on the screen. Hey, teachers, we always want to be 20 minutes early, right? And as an occasional teacher, oh my gosh, we're going to talk about this a little bit later. It's even more important. So thank you for playing. You get the idea. A nice one to do either physically in a room, really quick setup, or digitally. So thanks for playing.
Thanks for taking us through that. It's a great resource, Brenda. Appreciate it. So let's think together about what you should expect as you're looking at joining the ranks of an occasional teacher, or as you're already doing that right now currently. There's some things just that you should expect and that you should have provided for you and with you by the schools that you're working at. One is that you should be treated as if you are the classroom teacher. So you are taking care of the classroom for the full-time teacher, but it is your classroom in the days that you're in that building and in that classroom. And you may have to help support some other areas beyond the classroom as well, such as hallways, lunch duty, or yard duty, things along those lines. So it's not unusual for those things to happen. The classroom teacher will leave you lessons for the day. However, there are times when, because of a late illness or things like that, they may not have the capacity to do that, and there may be some things that prevent them from doing so. It's always good to have a backup plan just in case this happens. And if lessons are left, one thing to always remember is follow them and don't create your own. I know personally, I've had this happen to me as a professional teacher, that a substitute had come in and maybe didn't follow the lesson plans, and my students were were always telling me like, oh, Miss Real, I don't think what you left is what we did today. And so just make sure that you're doing that, because it helps keep students on pace. It also helps keeps them into their normal routine. And we'll talk a little bit about routines when we talk about some additional strategies and supports for students. And the most important thing to know is that you will have support from anyone in the school that you need. It is critically important that if you have any questions or need anything, that you reach out to folks in the school, because everybody is there to help support you and help you be successful. And when we talk about success, there are some things that you can do in the start just to set yourself up for success, like be prepared and be professional. Show up on time and as we just talked about in our would you rather, be early. Come early, that way you don't feel stressed, you don't start the day off feeling anxious. Check in at the office, check in with the office professionals, and just kind of make sure that you make those initial connections. take a little bit of time to review and look over the day's activities and experiences. And that way, if you have questions or if you're uncertain about something, you're not doing it at the last minute. And again, it helps you be relaxed and less stressed. Take a little walk around, find the key places in the school, such as where is the office? You've checked in there, but now that you're at your classroom, can you get back there if you need to, and how you navigate that? Where's your assigned classroom? Where are the restrooms, the facilities to use the bathroom? Where's the cafeteria at? Where are those things that sometimes people forget to tell you because they're just so used to them being there? And then make sure you introduce yourself to the office staff, teachers in the nearby classrooms. The people right next door to your classroom will be really important for you to know and just get to say hello to. It also helps you build a network from the beginning. Everybody's there to help you. And as we move through the webinar, we'll talk a little bit more about establishing some daily routines. But I also want to talk about different age groups. And I know in Canada, that oftentimes, or most of the time when you're an occasional teacher, you'll be working with kindergarten through 8th grade students, elementary age students. But there may be times when you also, for emergency supply reasons and different things, end up working at a secondary school as well. But kids at different age have some different unique characteristics. In the elementary age group, students exhibit a wide range of physical, social, emotional, and intellectual development. So in a single classroom, you're going to have young people across that spectrum. And if you sub for an arts or physical education position or some other type, we call them in the States specials teachers, art, music, physical education, all of those kind of itinerant areas. You're going to see a lot of different students from different age ranges. If you are substituting in a classroom, you'll most likely have the students, same group of students most of the day. And just kind of think about what the students' needs are, communicate and talk with the students, and most importantly, more than anything else, listen. Because, students will tell us what their needs are. Sometimes they do it by talking to us, and sometimes they do it by their behavior. Now, secondary age students, when we get to those young people in the older grades, they still are a wide range, but consistency is important for them. Consistency with the application of classroom routines, consistency with any different types of routines, communication, those types of things. And one thing you can do to help with consistency is just establish yourself early as the leader of the room, especially if it's the first time you've ever taken on an occasional teacher role. And to do this, there are some things that you can do right out of the start. Dress appropriately is one of them. Remember that you are the adult in the room, you are the teacher in the room, you're the leader in the room. Clean, appropriate dress, such as slacks or button downs, skirts or dresses of appropriate length. Comfortable work shoes are keys for you. Heels may look nice when you're outside and having fun with your friends, but they are really uncomfortable when you're in a classroom, especially when you're moving around a lot. You don't want to be, sloppy or inappropriate clothes, flip-flop, shorts, any of those things. It's all about being professional. And I also want you to think about being an occasional teacher as if your plan at some point is to move into a full contract and become a full-time teacher. Use this as a job application and a job, this is your interview for a job. So dress the part, dress appropriately, make sure you're clean and professional. Smile and act confident, even if you feel nervous inside, which we all do. I mean, I was a teacher for more than half of my career. The first day of the school year, every year I was nervous, every year. I'm still nervous at times and I oversee the school district, right? And it's okay to feel nervous, but just smile, be friendly, act confident, and just portray a positive attitude and have fun. I mean, have a lot of fun with young people. Take your time, speak slowly and clearly. Try to, one big tip that I would give any teacher is don't talk over students. If they get loud, you get quieter, because the louder they get, the louder you get, then it becomes a lot of noise in a room and it's overwhelming for everybody. So just be calm and talk to them and then listen. and then use space to your advantage. Most of the time in classrooms, teachers are standing, students are sitting, so you automatically have a height advantage, but it's also about proximity. If a young person is off task, instead of talking to them or addressing them across the room, walk over and stand near them. It usually takes care of things right away. So with that, I'm just gonna stop for a minute, have you think about and reflect on what we just said briefly, and then ask any questions that you might have from us. So I just wanna take a minute to pause and take any questions that you might have before we continue on.
I can ask one question. Does it look bad on the occasional teacher if they send a student down to the office or need the principal's help?
I would, no, not in my experience. If students should be respectful to an occasional teacher, just like they should be to their traditional classroom teacher. If you try to address it in the classroom and you can't, there's nothing wrong with asking. I actually call it disinviting students from the room. They're choosing to not be a positive, productive part of the environment. So I will often say things to them. I'll give them choices, and we'll talk a little bit about, like, ask any questions you have. We'll talk about classroom management, give them choices. So I'm asking you to do this. And if you don't do this, your option will be that I have to send you out of the room, and you won't be able to engage with us in these fun activities we're doing, or the activities we're doing. I really want to help you be successful. What you're doing right now isn't allowing you to do that. So I need you to either quiet down and follow directions, or I'm going to have to ask you to leave the classroom, because then it doesn't become a power struggle. You've given them an option, and they know that they're going to choose this or they're going to choose that, but it's their choice. And then just do it calmly. And there are going to be times when you may have to do that with young people. Often, if you give them a choice and you give them, frame it in a positive way, which we'll talk about positive phrasing shortly, students will make the right choice. And Brenda, pop in as well.
I want one little thing to add there is, I really loved what you said, Beth, about choices and all the things that you do first before you would send a student down or wherever to the office, and then following up at the office at your next break and say, hey, is there somebody I could talk to about this situation? Here's what I did, and then usually, as a vice principal, I would then talk with you and the student together, and we would then support you that way. If there's someone around to do that conference really quickly and get things straightened out, so that the next part of the day is you're all on the same page, kind of thing. Yeah.
And it also, leave a note for the classroom teacher to say, this is what I did, this is why I did it, and just some framing around it, because most classroom teachers will then follow up with the student as well. And it generally, if you come, whether you come back or another occasional teacher comes back, it often takes care of that scenario. It happens once, it usually doesn't happen more than once.
Can I add one more thing? Because I as a vice principal, what I noticed was in my last couple of years there, when we talked about the plans being at the office, often people were emailing in their plans, not like it used to be. If we were ill, we would get in there like in the evening when we looked horrendous and we weren't feeling very well, and we would put the plans on a desk. Now they're getting emailed. So if you don't see something, the office coordinator will know who the buddies of that teacher are that might have it in their email, or the office coordinator might also have the plans. So don't be afraid to have a quick look and then check in with the office. Another good reason to be early.
Great point. So, and feel free anytime as we're going through this to stop and ask questions too. So you don't have to wait just for the questions slide as well. I just want to say that up front. So
I have one question.
go ahead.
I just wanted to know that if we doing taking a class for, we don't know when the regular the home teacher will come, and we did, so how we will leave that note, because we are not sure whether that teacher will come after like winter break, she will come back or not, the other teacher. So are we supposed to leave a note?
I would leave a note as the finishing, as the closure of your day there. And if it's another substitute that comes in or an occasional teacher that comes in the next day, they just have more information about how your day went. Yeah, usually you will get information from the office if you're there for multiple days. But yeah, it's hard to know right now. I think we're in a little bit more of an unusual situation with illness right now and filled jobs. So yeah, I would still leave that note. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
And that was a great question. Thank you for
Mhm.
asking it. So
Yeah.
talk a little bit about safety and security. When you first check into the office and you meet with the office coordinator, or when you arrive in your classroom, there are things that you should be given or you should be aware of, which are a copy of the handbook and the policies, the safety, any safety policies and practices at the school, but also any student safety plan. So there might be students in the classroom who have some additional supports that are needed, or have some behaviors that they have, we call them behavior plans in the US. I know they're called safety plans, some ways to help address some of their unique needs. So students often will have things that are successful that work for them. And so you may find a student safety plan there as well. It's super important to keep our students safe and secure at all times. And, if you have any questions about general safety procedures and practices, please don't hesitate to ask them in the chat or ask them with us as we're working through this together. So Jordan, you have a question?
Yeah, are you, as a occasional teacher, are you given like students IEPs or just safety plans?
So in my experience here, what will happen, and this is our district, right? Upper Grand. And so other people might have different policies in place, but when occasional teachers come into the office, they have a book that they look through. And if any of the students have safety plans or any kind of IEP notice that would be something relevant for you day to day, you'll have a chance to glance over that. And you could probably take it with you for the day to your classroom if you felt that that was helpful as well. So you would get some information. You may not get
Okay.
their complete IEP.
Right. Okay, thanks.
Okay. Good
Yep.
questions.
Well,
Wow.
great questions. So thank you. One thing to think about too is schools all act differently. So even though you might have two different schools that are neighboring schools, you can go into one, things look different. All schools have their own unique communities, and you just want to learn about the building as quickly as you possibly can. So things that you might find helpful and might think about asking for when you enter the school and enter the office and talk with the office coordinator are some of these things. A daily your schedule and hours, that's a given. You've got to know when any transitions happen, all those things. A map of the school that's labeled, that helps you in case you get turned around, so you're able to find your way back. Student code of conduct, any type of procedures around discipline, things like that. And you might not need the whole thing, but at least enough information to let you know what are the processes and steps in place. Any technology rules, regulations, how to get help with those. And then again, anything about school emergencies. If there's a drill while you're in school, or if an event happens, how do you get students help? What are the safety procedures? And then if a student were to have a health experience, a health emergency in the classroom, who do you contact and how do you contact them? So those are important things to think about and know how to do. So I'll just pause and throughout and stuff with these, but I'm going to turn it over to Brenda, who's going to talk a little bit about some ways to build relationships and network of support, which are super important for you and for your future.
Mm-hmm. I just wanted to say, just adding on to what you were saying about the safety and procedures, no harm in just saying, hey, this is my first visit to your school. What do I need to know around your policies or your emergency situations? And I noticed that most teachers will have an emergency handbook somewhere near their door, so that if anything happens like a fire drill, they grab that on their way out. So just giving it a look around where their emergency postings are in their classroom might give you some of that information. So you're going to build your network face to face in the schools that you're visiting, in the classrooms that you're visiting. I also turn to Twitter because educators are so generous about sharing what they know. So even if social media isn't really your thing, you don't have to have an account and actually follow a lot of people. You can follow different groups of educators. And, I just wanted to, I just looked on Twitter to find a few things recently that I saw were amazing, because as teachers here in Ontario, we're getting back to moving again to virtual and then coming back to school. They've been sharing all kinds of sites filled with resources. So, I'd urge you to follow a few educators that you trust and see what you can learn from them there too, in addition to your face-to-face network.
And networking is so important throughout your entire career. No matter how many years you spend in education, networking, the more we collaborate together, the better we are as educators. Some things you want to think about as you enter your first day or the first day in any building. And I'll also say, whether you're an occasional teacher or you're there for a visit or whatever, all of this kind of sits the same as well. I've worked in 30 states in the US and 6 different countries. And the first thing I do is follow almost all these routines the same way, just anytime I enter a school building, any school district. And that's start the day, check into the office, get to know people, pick up any materials for the day, handbook, plans, etc. And this one seems kind of funny, and you'll laugh a little bit when I say this, but use the restroom right away, because once you get in there with young people, you can't leave them and just go, oh, I'm going to leave you now and stuff. So it's critically important. And that's, there's a running joke in education that we learn how to time our restroom breaks, right? Because we're around times when there's transitions.
Yeah.
Find the classroom, find the student lists. So try to read through them and see if there's any tricky names or anything like that. So and there's nothing wrong with asking a student how to say their name so that you honor their name versus just trying to wing it and making it more difficult than it needs to be. Find the lesson plans for the day. And if you, again, as Brenda mentioned, if you don't find it in the folder or you're not seeing it on the desk, check and see if it's in an email. And if not, call the office and just ask and find out where you might find that. Find a place to write your name in the classroom, whether there's a board that's available or even making a name tent, but find a way so that students can see your name, because you have to hear something over and over again before you get it. Usually it's like 7 to 10 times before you connect with something. So if you say your name to students once, they may or may not remember it. And it's not that they're trying to be disrespectful. It's just that they need to see it over and over again. Plus, it also helps them remember who you are for the future. Locate the day's schedule and any dismissal procedures. Like, how do you take students out for recess and where do you go for yard duty? What time do students go for lunch and how does that process look? And then what about the end of the day? Are students walkers, bus riders, car riders? And if so, what's that process look like? Or do students have an after-school event they go to, and which ones? Throughout the day, you may be asked to do some additional things like supervise lunch or step out into hallways if there are hallways in the school and just help with passing and any transitions. And again, you may have some after school helping get young people on the bus, all of those different things. So knowing those I never want to do is just allow students to leave throughout the day if they don't go out through the office or if they're not picked up directly by their parents who are connected to you in the school and people know who that young person goes with. And again, most importantly, all your colleagues in the building are there to help support you and answer any questions you have. So lean on them. Classroom management. You know, often people think of classroom management and the first word that comes to mind are things like discipline. But I'm gonna say that the most important piece for classroom management and helping students behave well in classrooms is called engagement, and getting them engaged with you, listening to them, respecting them, talking with them, hearing them, and having fun with them. So to do that, things that are important are give them clear expectations. Like, what is today going to look like, and what do I expect you to do, and what will I do for you and with you? Help students engage in learning and help keep them on task. You know, if they're unclear of what to do, they'll often be off task. Or, you know, help them understand how to behave well and do things right. And you can do that by establishing positive interactions with them. Too often, or not enough people, often enough, I guess, we often enough don't say to young people, we're just really glad you're here, and I'm really excited to be here with you. And thank you for letting me be here with you. And, you know, it's my honor to be here. So respond appropriately to any behavior issues you have, and we'll kind of talk about positive phrasing in a few minutes, and then seek assistance when you need it. But really, key pieces are relationships and engagement. If you care about and respect young people, they usually respond very positively to you. One of the ways, and a big tip for doing this, is how you phrase things for them. And there's something called positive phrasing. So I'm going to give you an example of this. So I just want you to listen to a statement that I say, and then see what happens in your mind, and just think for a minute, and you can even share in the chat, what do you picture when I say this? And this is the command. Do not picture a gorilla right now. So what happens? Most likely you pictured a gorilla in your head, right?
Yes.
Because our brain doesn't understand the word not or don't. And so when we hear not or don't, what we hear is what comes after that. That's what our brain processes. So for example, when we say don't run, a young person hears run. If we say, don't do that, there's no eating in class, our brain goes, eating, and then our body follows. So instead of saying don't or not, use positive phrasing. So instead of saying don't run, we say, please walk, or speak softly. Let's use your inside voice. Or can you whisper to the person that you're talking to instead of saying it in a loud voice? Keep your hands to yourself. Remember our agreements. Put your food away. Remember your homework. If we phrase things in positive ways, we see amazing things happen with classroom management with young people.
You know, I have a little story about that one.
Yeah.
Because when I was vice principal, or any time actually, I used to love, you know, I'd be in the hallways, and occasionally you'd see skipping and running and all that, you know, students just do it. And I used to have fun saying, as I'd come closer, hey, thanks for walking. And students would sort of go, they'd get this little look on their face, because they would realize they don't, half the time they don't realize they're skipping, jumping, running, and just like, oh yeah, and then walk and just kind of smile and whatever, you know, and just it's a normal thing where you're excited and you're burning off energy, but thank you for walking. And then they would walk. It would just be a lot better than don't run. Yeah.
Absolutely. And the more we phrase things positively for young people, the more we model for them ways that they engage positively with each other as well. So those are really key things to think about. Confidentiality and professionalism, along with Freedom of Information Act, which means we should not be sharing confidential information about young people's health or about personal information with them. We just want to make sure that we're strong and helping support you when we think about these things. Confidentiality is super important in schools. When we work with underage students, minors, there are expectations and legal requirements that we have in schools. So some things you can do to be professional, but also ensure confidentiality are avoid talking with or about students in unacceptable ways. So make sure we're being acceptable and positive with students. Be prepared to handle any non-classroom based duties, use our school resources appropriately, and separate personal from professional time. So to do this, there are a couple of things, and you may have heard about this from others, but we just want to reiterate them as well, which is gossip is a really easy way to get yourself in trouble. You know, sometimes people will, you may encounter teachers who want to talk about students with you. They want to say things like, oh, Brenda, you know, geez, you know that Brenda, but don't engage in it. Just say, you know, I'm so sorry, I can't talk to you about that right now, or, you know, just rephrase and change the conversation to something else and say, you know what, hey, I'm really excited about working with these students today. I'm having a really great time, or something like that. But don't engage in confidential conversations. And remember also that you are the adult in the building. And sometimes, depending on the age of students, they may be close in age to you, but you're still the adult and they're still students. So you're there to be their teacher and to be positive with them, but you're not their friend, right? So they may try to get you to share personal information about yourself, but you don't need to do that. Just share professional things. You can talk about things that you're interested in, hobbies and things like that, but don't share information about your family or things that you would share with a friend, but really shouldn't share with students. So just, it's always important to remember that. And the one thing that happens a fair amount right now, I know here and likely there too, is information about students' medical records and medical care right now. You may know something about a student based on the fact that they're absent from your classroom. There may be a time when a student is COVID positive, things like that. That's not something you should or could share with other students or anyone else. So just keeping that information private is important. So. Another thing that's important and so critical is working with other educators. There may be times in the times that you're being an occasional teacher and you're in the classroom that there are other educators there. It could be a co-teacher, a shared teacher that's working in the classroom that normally is there side by side with the regular classroom teacher. It could be educational assistants, teacher librarians, anyone else. Use them to your advantage and use them as a collegial professional colleague and friend, and share time with them. Talk with them and say, hey, I'm here. What, you know, are there things you want to do collaboratively? What is, you know, what would you like to do? And also know that they know the students' routines if they've been in the classroom, so they can help be a really big resource for you. And I'm going to pause for any questions or reflections or things that you'd like to share or like to ask at this moment, and then we'll kind of go on from there.
I guess, like Brenda, from a vice principal point of view, what makes occasional teachers stand out from the rest?
Oh, that's good. Good question. Beth will have some thoughts on this one as well. For me, it is that personnel touch and just being very friendly to staff and students, being visible. So when students are entering the classroom, if you're in the hallway as they transition in, and kind of always being where students are, where most of your students are. I like to walk by and see, you know, occasional teachers floating in a room as opposed to sitting at a desk, you know, really being there and present and nearby students. I like them asking questions if they don't know, rather than just worrying, you know, having something happen and you know, like where should, like you said about dismissals and who takes this child home, and double checking on things just to be sure. So just being very aware and connected and present with students, you know, not a time to be like on your phone unless you had a big emergency or something like that. So you're really there to get to know people, students and staff. Yeah. And offering help too.
Yep.
What would you say, Beth?
Well said, Brenda. A lot of it comes down to that very thing. Make it feel like, even though you're a visitor in the school, that you're really not, that you are a part of that school, and doing that by just greeting people, saying hi, you know, when you encounter people, introduce yourself to them and say, you know, I'm excited to be here. It goes a long way to say to the principal or vice principal, thank you for having me here today. I'm just really excited to work with your students. And as Brenda mentioned, I would say one thing that would set you apart negatively is if you're in the classroom on the phone or reading a book or something like that while the students are engaged in learning. Being present with students is really important. Being present with other people makes a huge difference.
Awesome, thanks.
Yeah, great question. So we know that being an occasional teacher can be super rewarding, and it's one of the most important jobs we have in school systems right now. But we also know it can be very stressful. You know, you're keeping track of students, teaching lesson plans of sometimes of a subject you may not know a whole lot about, and this can create stress. And stress can have some really ill effects on your body. You know, when you feel stressed, your body experiences changes like a rapid heartbeat, shallow breathing, your muscles get tight. And sometimes you have a reduced ability to think analytically and don't always make the best decisions. So to be at the best for students, there are some things that you can do to help set yourself up for success. We talked about some of them before. Some very positive stress reducing personal routines help the day be smooth. One of those is arriving with sufficient time to prepare for yourself and to know that, you know, okay, I've got time to go know where my classroom is. So I'm not running to the classroom. I've got time to sit and just feel like I can know what this environment is before all of these young people come in and all of this energy comes into the room. Staying positive, your attitude is a huge positive or negative effect on students. Students can feel energy in the classroom, just like you can feel energy from them. If you're positive and you stay positive, they will feel that and they will respond to that. Using affirming words with students, positive words to help build self-confidence with them and with yourself. So if you start to get nervous, tell yourself, it's okay to be nervous, but I'm going to be okay. I've got this, right? You know, I'm in control here and I'm going to have fun. I'm going to have fun. I'm going to breathe and take time and just take that moment to be still and breathe. And when you're stressed, you can get unfocused. So slow down, take your time, and know that it's going to be okay. And you've got a lot of people there to support you. And I will say this, it's super important to reduce stress in the classroom, because if you're stressed, students will get stressed. And then energy becomes nervous in the classroom. Students are uncertain of how you're going to react to them, and they don't always know how to control their emotions. We as adults generally know how to control our emotions. So the calmer we are, the calmer they will be, even in stressful situations. So Brenda, I see that I think you want to say something here.
Yeah, you know what? I just had a visual actually, as you're describing that so well, Beth. You know, I'm standing in my classroom and students are starting to enter, or I'm in the hallway, and some students will react when they see you, right? They'll, oh, like they will be a little nervous too, right? Because they don't have their usual teacher there. And that possibly is a little stressful for you. Don't take it personally. Just saying, hey, like you just said, we got this. We're going to have a good day. Smile, no worries. Come on in. I can't wait to meet you. You know, really, that's what we all want, right? Is that belonging and connection. So you will go a long way to have that confident, friendly manner, I think.
Yep. And if you remember, if you always in the back of your mind remember that human beings want to be loved, respected, and want to feel like a part of a community, you'll always do well, no matter what. So I'm going to ask you to do a quick review. So I'd like you to share in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and share as well. 2 key things that you're going to want to ask for from the school to help you set up the day successfully. What are 2 takeaways that you had that you say, these are things that I need to make sure that I have in place? Of any of the things we've talked about, what are 2 that you think will be really important for you to help you set the day up for success? So take just a minute. You can either type in the chat or you can unmute and share with us as well.
I just want to say that the two key points, there are many, but you're asking two. So I just want to say that one which I just got from Brenda, that is sharing the note that we can do even with the office staff or the principal or vice principal. That, yeah, that really I taken note of that. And also the other part that Brenda told that about the way, and you told about the, you also told about the way we can talk in positive way, not that just for example you told that don't run, we should say in other way. So the way you told is just strike me. Yeah, yeah, that way. Even sometimes I also tell them, the student used to look at me that why I said it, they're not doing that, but I'm telling that they see, look at, they look at my face and they just stared at me, that why I told them. They know that what they did, but still. So yeah, that's the great point, that they, yeah, they really listened when they get to know that we are praising what they're doing. So two, I will say these are my 2 points which which I will take away from this webinar.
Great.
And thanks a lot.
I would say the materials for the day that you need. So checking in with the office and gathering like any safety plans, or if the lesson plan was left at the office, or any materials you need from them, like to help make your day run smoother. And then just like finding that lesson plan and going through it, just to make sure that you're like more confident when the students arrive. Just and just kind of welcoming them at the door, just like with confidence.
Thank you. So we're going to share some resources with you. And I know we're coming up close on time, so please bear with us if you want to, if you need to leave, we understand, but we're going to kind of share a number of resources with you, and then ask you for a couple things at the end as well.
Okay, so I wanted to, and I'll just pop this one in the chat so that you will have it and can bookmark it in on your own computer. The Ontario Teachers Federation is a federation that serves all teachers in Ontario. It's not a bargaining unit like some of our elementary teachers federation, or the occasional teachers, or the secondary teachers federation. So it's very much about supporting you and professional learning. So you can check out their Survive Thrive website, good name for it. And there's a whole section on occasional teaching in there. And I was browsing through a lot of it in preparing for tonight. And there's some great videos on there for that teachers have shared, that are occasional teachers, with lots of little, things to keep in your toolkit, and just a lot of the things that we've talked about here today. And look at a whole section on well-being. So really kind of, reflecting a lot of the things we've talked about here. So that was a good one. And then we also have coming into us from the Elementary Teachers Federation, they have a whole occasional teachers website, as well as a new additional qualifications course for occasional teachers. So they're really devoting a lot of time and energy to making this experience really great for you, and for supporting those of you who are in this important role, because it's really, really becoming super important. So you can get lesson plan ideas here, classroom ideas, just tips and tricks, that kind of thing. Super, super good place to start. And then the last one is a list of so first of all, this Educanes is the ministry's website, where they have a lot of resources for teachers around well-being, around special education, around technology integration, mathematics, assessment and evaluation. And many of those are video resources or articles and things. So that's a good place to know about. And the other linked, the linked document there, let me just grab that one and copy it, is something I thought you might want to know about. Most subject areas have an association in Ontario. So we have the Math Teachers Association, like the one I'm showing you there. They have a conference coming up. There are social studies associations, literacy, you know, almost, there's a whole bunch of them in French and English. And so those are great websites to look for different tips and resources for you that you can put in your toolkit to have. Or if you get a longer placement and you really need to be, after a certain amount of time, diving into some lesson plans, you'll have the resources that the teacher has, but you might actually want to be looking around by subject. So these are sort of Ontario specific resources that we hope you might browse through, and maybe bring back questions next time if you join us on our next evening. So we could always talk deeper about those kinds of things.
So we're going to pause for a minute and see if there are any other final questions that you have for us, and then we'll kind of talk about next steps together. A couple of suggestions we have for you too, as well as to ways to add some additional value as an occasional teacher, is to think about joining the supply list and becoming an emergency supply person as well. And I'll let Brenda talk about that in just a minute. And then think about occasional teaching if as a test drive. You're test driving whether you like the school that you're, doing your, whether short-term or long-term occasional teaching with, and also a test drive for the school with you. You're making an impression. This may be a school you want to, if you want to move into a full-time teaching role, this may be one that you want to, find out what's the feeling of the school. Is this a school I want to work at for full-time? And if so, how do I make an impression on them while I'm here? Because cultivating a reputation and developing a network helps support you in that. I know as a building principal previously and as a chief academic officer currently, we often look at our student, we call them substitute teachers. We look at our substitute teachers and often are like, wow, that person is really good. We should look at them as a full-time teacher. And when our next opening comes, and we'll remember folks. So I'll, Brenda, let you speak a little bit more to the emergency supply list. And then
So one of my duties that used to start very early in the morning every day was to fill unfilled jobs. And so most of our districts, I was telling Beth, now have an automated application process. It used to be you would take your resume around to schools and that's how you might apply for jobs. Now it's more of an automated process, as is filling jobs for supply. However, if jobs go unfilled with that electronic process, I often had to call people. And so don't be afraid in your neighboring area, maybe nearby where you live, to go to the school at a time that isn't super busy. So, I would go sort of midday as opposed to right at the bell or anything like that. And just go to an office coordinator and say, hey, I'm a recent graduate or I'm an occasional teacher in the area. I'm also available for emergency supply work. Here's my resume. And you can give me a call anytime. And just to open that door, it's usually, many times it's the office coordinator. She would then give me those names and I would follow up, or I would just be listening and I'd be like, what? Somebody's on the emergency supply teacher list, and I would come out and meet you and get on that list. So, it's again, being about being confident and meeting people. And maybe the odd principal wouldn't, or, some principals, I don't mean principals are odd, but maybe some principals wouldn't like that approach. That's okay. Just say, okay, thanks. That's okay. Thanks for your time. And off you go to the next one, but it's worth a try.
So what's next? We'd like to get a little bit of feedback from you about the next webinar. So after this webinar, if you don't mind, we'll follow up with an email in the next few days, and we're going to put together a short survey, a Google form, just to ask some input from you about what you might be interested in learning more about. But we'll also take a minute right now, if you'd rather, where we can just open it up and ask for your input and just say, are there things that you'd like to dive deeply into in webinar 2 that will come up in February? And if so, what might those things be? So you can either respond in the chat, you can unmute, or you can also just kind of say, I need some time to think about it as well. So we'll hang out here for a few minutes so you can share with us anything you'd like to share. And I'm actually going to move this to the next slide and I'll stop recording so that we can just have those conversations.